metal points on this planet, so a huge amount of metal all over the place. Not very clustered as well, very, very spread out, so it's all over the place. A couple of pings going down there from Orange, the Cult clan, pinging some of their locations where they're going to start. Important to start relatively close to your teammates. You're going to have almost unlimited eco, so map control is a bit less important, and supporting your teammates is a bit more important.
Yeah, I mean, I reckon we're going to see a lot of teleporter play this game because moving units between bases is going to be so important, especially if they're going to go for tanks because vehicles move so much slower. But also, looking at it, you've got a lot of trees around the place, so there's going to be a lot of reclaiming, a good number of forest fires, I reckon, to start off with, just so the players can actually build some stuff. But looking at Cult, they've all spawned together. I can't say I recommend this. I really can't.
So here we go at the start of this first game in Cult Wars in Clan Wars Season 1. Cult and Voices of War. Voices of War in blue. They've split up. Two near the equator, one towards the north, one towards the south, so they've got quite a lot of ground there, which is pretty nice, and they're still relatively close, able to support, but Cult over here in orange have all chosen to spawn together, so they are definitely a disadvantage. They won't be able to get as much eco, but because there's so much metal, it isn't nearly as much of a disadvantage as normal, and we can see the amount of factories they're building this quickly. Two of their commanders have built 3 bot factories incredibly quickly there, and the other one working on 2 air factories, so they're working very, very quickly on production because they started together.
Yeah, I mean, it looks as though definitely is that Cult is going to want to rush things down. They're getting a lot of fabricators out early as well because they've got so many commanders to support their eco. Looking over at the Voices of War, though, they've got many fewer factories there. But, I mean, the thing with Cult going full bots like that, that's going to be a lot of movement speed very quickly with a lot of docks. Whereas, of course, Voices of War have all spawned separately. So if Cult uses their combined offensive from the word go, they can take out the lone guy at the top there.
Yeah, indeed, they are a little bit isolated, particularly the guy at the north. But I wouldn't be too worried. I think with a little bit of intel, they'll be okay to make sure they keep protecting these players that are more isolated from the other ones. They'll have to be pretty decisive as well. Getting out a whole load of bots though, still working on more bot factories for Cult. So we can see a big rush coming in. You can get a lot of bots out. They're going to be very, very fast, very quick. But it is a pretty big planet, isn't it? So the travel time is still going to be pretty long, even with those fast docks.
Yeah. And we did just see a scout go off at the South Pole and a few pings going off from Cult as well. So they know the chap's isolated down there on the South Pole. Looking back into their point of view, actually, they haven't scouted the guy at the north, but they have scouted the combined spawns, so yeah. I reckon they're probably going to make a play for the south for the time being, especially since now all of their scouts have been destroyed by interceptors.
Yeah, they can see the 2 commanders there on the equator as well, so they know that one guy at the south is a little bit isolated. They haven't found that 4th player yet, so they do still need a little bit more intel and no scouts currently. But now beginning to build up, getting out a lot of units, bots being produced. A decent group of bots already moving south towards their Cult's base, but they definitely still need to expand and get their eco up. Because currently sitting at 200 metal to 300 from Voices of War in blue.
Yeah, that is the disadvantage with all spawning together, though they do have plenty enough fabricators. It might be an idea, actually, because the planet is so large and it'll take so long to get interceptors to cover all of it, you could risk getting out a few air fabricators into really isolated patches of metal and just pop up some random expansions around the place. Let's try your luck with that.
Yeah, definitely. A big planet like this, you want to be getting up some production bases and pumping out units from lots of different areas, try and take the map control with those factories pumping out. A couple of pings going off. Yeah.
Do you want to go on that one?
No, go for it.
Well, they managed to see the air factories and of course all the eco bays as well as the bot factory, the heavy bot factories there. Well, in fact, actually no, they've only seen a couple of them, but they'll probably try and go and counter these bots now. They've got a lot of vehicles up at the North Pole spawn. There are a few spinners mixed in, so they haven't got as many tanks as they could have. But of course, the more tanks they have versus bots is always better, because of course they can take more hits.
Yeah, just taking a little look around the bases now, 4 or 5 factories in each one. However, on the equator for Voices of War, we see an advanced bot factory now started. Good work getting on the T2 as we hit 5 minutes now, so that's pretty early. And I think that's very important on this map, getting access to the T2 power, which will increase your power income, which is going to be a limiting factor really, as well as getting all those nice advanced powerful units.
Yeah, I feel what they could do with that advanced bot factory is get another commander to assist it, and it'll get up really, really quickly. But here we're going to have two clumps of docks moving in against each other now through the forest. Unfortunately, a few interceptors possibly getting caught in the crossfire there. They do manage to survive, but fabricators getting taken out. But now the forking maneuver coming in from Colt as they get two defensive forces in different locations. But there was a pesky docks on the southern side of Colt's base there that just managed to take out a mechs. Really well done there.
Yeah, they're managing to run rings around them at the moment, Voices of War. They had much less bots, but they're kind of running around trying to do a little bit of raiding on the outside. And now also coming in from the north, a couple of more forces. They've switched up to tanks. Colt is sticking with the bots. They've just built non-stop bot factories right now, so they're really thinking of making really big groups and just sending them out doing fast raiding and trying to be pretty decisive with their hits there.
Given the number of bot factories they have, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bomb bot strat at some point, because that's an incredible number of bot factories. If we just go into the army tab there, 31, only a few of which are air factories, so we'll probably safely say that 27 at least bot factories there for Colt, which is incredible. But I mean, look at the commander of Voices of War on the south. He's relatively isolated in terms of defense, so you could get a bomb bot snipe off in various locations.
Yeah, that's the other thing with bots. You can start off with all your raiding with the docks, but you can switch up to boom bots if you ever want to come in for a very quick snipe. Because they have so much production, they can get a lot of boom bots out on the fly, and it could come as a bit of a surprise for Voices of War if they're not prepared for it.
I think the issue Voices of War are having at the moment is a distinct lack of interceptors, as few bumblebees come in, taking out big swathes of their docks forces, as a whole bunch of Colt's mechs are taken down there, not only by a few raiding docks, but then a few bumblebees came in. And Colt not doing a great job here of answering that, to be honest, but then again they do only have bots, which aren't particularly good at anti-air. They are trying to get up some air factories of their own, but the fabricators just got taken out, so they're just going to have to rely on interceptors, and more interceptors.
Wow, more engineers going down.
Yeah.
More engineers going down as well. So nice work there taking out those engineers, stopping some important projects that were being built. Definitely need a couple more fighters because Voices of War seems to be dominating at the moment. Beginning to send all their forces up to the north side, starting to build a nice wall, getting up some turrets there as well. Cryo saying we have no metal.
Oh my goodness.
They're currently sitting at 1,000 metal and 500 for Colt.
It's interesting to see that they're sending in sort of the single file docks through the lake there. I feel as though that's just a sort of distraction tactic to keep some sort of defensive force over there from Colt, so they can't mass their forces in one location and have just got to keep an eye on all sides of their base at one time.
Possibly. They have sent a whole load of forces over there, and it's pretty interesting to think about how that could be used strategically. They have so many bots, they can send all of their forces straight through here, come straight in at the equator. But really beginning to lose the tech war now, as we see a lot of T2 power gens going up from Voices of War. They have 4 T2 engineers, 5th one just come off, 6th one on the go as well. It's going to be built very, very quickly. A lot of build power in those T2 engineers, and getting that power up is really going to help them grow their economy and use up all their build power.
They could even hop into orbital if they really wanted to, but I wouldn't be surprised if we started seeing some possibly advanced vehicles from the South Pole especially, and with that advanced bot factory we can start to see some Blue Hawks or Slammers, because of course with that maintained push through the equator, eventually it's going to become a Cry Wolf scenario where Colt are thinking, just single file, we can just leave them to it, and then, oh, you have Slammers.
Yeah, sending a couple of forces through the lake still, forcing Colt to defend, and Colt beginning to move forwards, but they're kind of going up towards the north, the one place where there's actually quite a bit of resistance. A pity they don't move south, because, oh, here we go, now from the south moving a whole load of troops, and a lot of tanks in the mix as well. You see Voices of War wanting much more mixed armies, just sticking with the docks at the moment, however, for Colt. And I think the mixed armies tend to win out, because those tanks just a little bit more hard-hitting once you actually start getting into confrontations.
Yeah, and especially the thing with tanks versus bots is if you have relatively equal numbers, the tanks will win because of that greater health and the slightly lower DPS from the docks there.
The nice work from Voices of War, still doing harassment with their T1 bombers. They have a lot of fighters to protect these bombers, so they're just sending in at least 4 or 5 or so and sending them in to destroy these T1 mechs and just doing a nice little bit of harassment. And look, not only do they stop the eco and slow them down, they kind of prevent them from expanding, because you don't really want to expand when you're already having areas of your base not able to be defended. So they're kind of putting them in a corner and making sure they don't expand.
Over on the North Pole now we have the 3 groups now pushing in causing a little bit of tension on this North Pole entrenchment as they try and get a pelter up. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too low. I just glanced in the army tab there, 1,200 to 700 there for Colt in the lead. So what they could do is just mass all of their forces and just push Voices of War all the way back if they really wanted to. But it'll involve a lot of good micro to avoid all of these tank blobs, because as we talked about the tank disparity earlier there.
Yeah, the one problem is, though, they've got predominantly bots, which are going to be a lot less valuable in terms of numbers compared to the tanks. So we'll look at the south side as blue begins to move forwards. Bombers still staying on the right-hand side of the base. And currently an interesting 3 groups of large amounts of docks coming in around the north side for Colt. And they could potentially do us around, maybe come in from all directions. They definitely need to be able to defend because Colt is beginning to move all of their forces and start being a little bit aggressive.
Oh my, orbital launcher and a nuke coming up from Voices of War. Will they need it? That's the question, because they are making a pretty big dent on the south side there as the Infernos go in first, tanking all the shots from the docks, letting the vehicles shoot from a distance there. I keep forgetting their name, Bolos now. But I feel as though Colt has neglected bombers in this game.
Yeah, definitely. A little bit more fighters as well, just so they can control the air and defend against these bombers. But, you know, as long as you have enough fighters, you can always go into bombers. Getting into a little bit of trouble on the south side as those Infernos now beginning to stretch straight through. On the north side, however, they're still absolutely surrounded, this group of units. If they all send in all their forces at one time, they'll converge in and get a nice win there and can potentially start being aggressive. But at the moment, still haven't actually moved in and hemmed in that group finally. We've got a commander in towards the south, perhaps going to come in with some Uber cannons now to destroy these units trying to break in through the south side.
I feel he's a little bit overexposed.
Doesn't do too much damage because it's hitting the front though. And using those bots to support. On the north side, these forest fires beginning to spread. And a whole load of bombers coming in against this big group. Probably going to lose a huge amount of their bots up here at the north. Because they're not too good against large groups of bombers. And already losing quite a few of their forces there. So that attack, fairly successful. Commander now falling below 50%. He's in a bit of trouble. Taking that damage does make him a little bit more vulnerable. Probably going to have to move back into his base to stay a bit safer now.
Yeah, of course they can just rotate all their commanders around, but of course the movement speed of the commanders is so incredibly slow. Meanwhile, back in the middle of the Voices of War base, their nuclear silo is complete. They're focusing down on the missiles there, getting up some even more air factories, T2 vehicles as well, and they're popping up an orbital factory. So I wouldn't be surprised if we started to see perhaps some reclaiming, because there's only one umbrella in Colt's base at the moment. In fact, 2 umbrellas, I miscounted.
Yeah, Newt now going up about 20% of the way through for Voices of War, moving forwards with their tanks as well. Actually, not many forces, but doing very, very well. Currently staying at range, actually, and popping off a lot of these little bots as they turn to retreat. Bombers also coming in and destroy a huge swathe of those bots as well. If your bots are ever not moving, and you let the bombers have a free run at them, you will lose a huge amount with one single bombing run. And Voices of War now moving in pretty heavily from the north, still putting more pressure in from the south as well, and currently losing a little bit of ground from Colt. Looked like they were going to retreat, now going to move forwards and actually engage with those Infernos coming in from the south side. They're going to stop assisting that nuclear missile launch. It was 40% of the way through, but Voices of War aren't going to keep assisting it. Evidently they have other problems they want to be dealing with right now.
Yeah, now looking at the economy tab there, almost treble metal for Voices of War there. They can do pretty much anything they want. There's another commander under attack alert goes off there for Colt. But it definitely feels as though Colt didn't expand. I think they made a really bad decision of spawning together at the beginning and going all bots. I think there was a sort of combined decision there, and then to not be particularly offensive as well. I think that really let them down.
If you're going to go all those early bots and you want to be aggressive and raiding and slowing your opponents down, not waiting for them to come to you. And I think you're right. I think they wanted to play safer and stay all together so they wouldn't ever get picked off alone, but really you do need to expand. Even in this sort of scenario, it's going to put you in trouble. And the tank's now right in the middle of Colt's base towards the north side, and still putting pressure in from the south as well. That commander down at the bottom needs to be careful actually as he begins to engage with some of these forces coming in from the south. Not too much to protect him, so he does need to be careful. But these units coming right in through the main base at the north, this is trouble for Colt.
Oh yeah, this is game-ending territory there, because they didn't manage to get up their T2 factory. Meanwhile, if we look back at the other unit compositions, I'm surprised we still don't see any slammers moving through actually, but the T2 vehicles aren't going either. Commander is killed there. Colt now down to 3 commanders, and the last one is in the middle of its power generator field there, taking down his health now, falling below 50, 40, 30, and he's going to pop, but in the middle of all those vehicles, so that offensive is going to be nullified for the time being. But now with only 2 commanders and with a loss of goodness knows how many factories there, they're definitely on all fours now, clawing at whatever remains of the game.
Good air units as well from Voice of War, still with a lot of bombers actually on the right hand side of the base now. Coming in towards these 2 commanders that are on their own, you'd be surprised. They might even be able to pull off a single snipe with this many bombers. I think they'll get one of the commanders down pretty low. I think the saving grace is these 2 commanders with their combined anti-air will actually be able to kill a lot of those bombers. They're going to fly straight over them, concentrating on the commanders now. Down go all those bombs. Wow, down to 50% in one strike. Will they have enough to finish it on the second and third bombing run? Being shot down, taking them down to 10%.
There he goes. And then a second bombing run ready on the horizon, so this commander is going to find himself in a sticky situation as he just lost a whole bunch of health to that other commander explosion. Now falling down below 40 as well, 20, 25, and the GGs will be called momentarily, I should hope, as the game goes to Voices of War.
Let me see a second nuke on top of the other one. Congratulations to Voices of War. Put the pressure on, took a lot of map control, and great work with the air. Managing to finish it off nice and quick with 2 quick snipes there.
Really good game there. So they'll get the next game up, and we'll interview some players from Cult.
Yeah, we'll get through some of the interviews and have a little look at them. See what they thought of that game, and we're going to be moving on to the next game after this, which will be on the Voice of War system, which would be potentially pretty interesting. Definitely a totally different type of system.
Hello there, Recoil.
Hey there.
Hey, Recoil. So that didn't go so well, huh?
Yeah.
I think the obvious question here is, why did you all spawn together?
As we started, we found it's a fun playstyle, kind of working as a half time. So I think we find what the strength is just
certainly
trying to build a mega base.
You were able to turtle there for a while.
Yeah,
but it looked like their map control just got out of your control. They had twice the economy that you had by about 6 minutes in.
Oh wow!
Because they went and they took all of the metal on the planet.
Yeah. So we built a lot of metal just so we didn't have to worry so much about it with the mega base strategy. But if they have multiple bases, it could be a problem.
They were up to about 1,000 metal at 6 or 7 minutes.
Wow.
So do you guys think you might switch up that spawn strategy for later games in this series on your home planet?
Yeah, we'll definitely think about it and reflect on it.
Yeah, you made a lot of docks too. I saw that. Which, was that planned, or did you just end up doing it? Like they're sort of not the best defensive unit.
Yeah, we started to realize that they're not working out, especially in this new patch.
They work really well for raiding if you had sent out small groups to take out metal.
Yeah, we realized we should have been more aggressive at the starting there.
Yeah, I was impressed by your maneuvering though in the north. You seemed to get they had their forces coming in, and you had 3 or 4 different groups of large Dox armies that you just sent in and surrounded them. But then you guys didn't move in for the kill. Did something go wrong, or was it just too overwhelming?
Lack of intelligence on our part there. Had we realized that they were wide open for that, we would have gone for it.
Okay. Well, how do you think you're going to do on their orbital map?
The only thing we can do is try our best. So.
All right. Well, I don't want to hold you guys. Let you get some last minute planning in, and I'll send it back to the casters.
All right.
Good luck.
Thanks.
I'm gonna take this guy down with me!
Uppers the two die.
No!
That was the game, goddammit. Dude, look at that automatic messages.
Yes!
Who died?
That was me, and I took someone with me. Who was? Yeah, it was you, Trotz. You disgrace.
Who's yellow? Who's yellow? Is that Colin?
Bill
Phil Collins
Hunter.
is genius.
This is crazy.
No, it's funny,
How
that's-
have only 3 people died? 4 people died. Come on, guys.
Because I was.
There we
No,
go.
no, no.
I'm killing Colin.